Welcome to Ebike Nugs, welcome to sunny Dundee, welcome to this, the Riese Müller Culture Mixte, a new e-bike from e-bike superstar Riese and Müller, and welcome to a slightly new format for Ebike Nugs, in which we're going to have a look at a bike that has been loaned to me by Electric Bike Scotland here in Dundee. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, tell you what it's like to ride it, and then we're going to jump on it and go and chat to Daniel from Electric Bike Scotland to find out more. We're going to start though with an overall view of this bike. We'll go top to tail and take you through what this bike is. The first thing though is just first impressions, and isn't it pretty? It's just the most beautiful thing. I've got a real affection for Riese Müller's industrial design language. It is elegant, refined but soft. It's not too butch, too macho. Really suits me. There is, by the way, as well as this blossom colour, there is a denim blue colour that's a little more butch if that's what you want. I think this is gorgeous. Right, let's start at the front. Big 28-inch tyres. My own bike has got little 20-inch tyres, so riding a bike with full-size tyres always feels very elegant. You're just drifting along the road. Nice, big, chunky hub fenders that keep the rain and the muck off your clothes, that extend right the way down with little kick-outs. Same on the back, keeps you nice and clean. That is incredibly important, especially in Scotland. Bright light. It really is a nice, sharp, piercing, clear, clean light. Ridden this bike in the pitch dark and it lights the way. You see what you're doing. There are little cutouts on the side, so there's light comes out to the side as well. So you get a nice overall view. That is matched, by the way, by one on the rear mudguard. There's a red light here as well. And it's all integrated, of course, as you'd expect with a bike like this, so you're not having to charge lights separately. Big benefit of an e-bike. Big chunky grips. It is a twist gear system, and it's an 8-speed system. I find that gear 6 is a nice cruising speed. If I take it to gear 8, I'm working a little harder than I like to, but 6 is a nice gentle pace for me. It's a very simple display set up by default. You can buy the Purion display as part of the Bosch system to put a little LCD so that you can see what your bike is doing. But by default, it comes with this little heads-up display thing here, which simply allows you to turn the bike on. It shows you the power level here, and it shows you the charge level of your battery as well. I will note that the battery is integrated. You can't remove it. You charge it from a port on the back here, which is a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes for some people. So you shouldn't ever charge e-bikes in sub-zero temperatures. You can use them in sub-zero temperatures, although you get less range, but you should never charge them in sub-zero temperatures. And that's going to be a bit of a sticking point for some people, because the ability to take your battery off the bike and take it into the house and charge it is really useful. This way you've got to be able to put the bike somewhere where there's an electrical socket and where it's going to be kept out of the cold temperatures in winter if you live somewhere that experiences sub-zero temperatures. One thing I will say, the brakes are great. They're sharp, hydraulic disc brakes. You see the disc here, no problems with that at all. One really cute feature, I like this a lot, is that here on the stem there is a support, a little clip for you to put your mobile phone onto. This uses the standard, there's two big standards that I see in biking. One is Quad Lock, the other one is SP Connect. This is the latter, SP Connect. So if you buy any SP Connect compatible case for your phone or another accessory, a bike tracker computer or GPS, sat-nav thing, whatever, if it supports SP Connect or can be made to support SP Connect, you can put it straight here. What's nice about that is you can then, I haven't, because I'm just borrowing this and I don't have a SP Connect case, but you can then pair the bike to that phone via an app so that you'll get much richer display. You'll see speed, cadence, range, all that sort of stuff, whole bunch of chunky, crispy, crunchy data. And I love that we're getting to the stage now that bike manufacturers are kind of doing what car manufacturers long ago realised they have to, which is when it comes to dashboards in effect, which is what this is, just let people use their phones. Because we've got our phones, we upgrade our phones quite a lot, our phones are great, let's not muck about with like independent third parties. So this is quite a smart, I think, cost cutting, yes, but actual engagement with and dialogue with how people actually use tech and bikes these days as well. So I love that. I think that's a really smart move. The seat is all right. And my wife's e-bike has got a big, chunky, padded, gorgeous seat on it. And with her, when she switches onto one of my other bikes, she finds them a bit hard. I find this a wee bit hard, but it is absolutely fine. A couple of Allen keys there to raise or lower it. I might be tempted to go for something a little bit, because it's the swept back handles, feels quite relaxed, quite Dutch style. I might be tempted to switch this out for something a little more luxurious. Down to the important stuff then, the business end of this. There is down here the Bosch Performance Line SX motor. And this is the thing I really want to talk to Daniel at Electric Bike Scotland about, because he said as he was handing this bike over to me, that with this motor, it is quite powerful, but you need to have the revs up before that kicks in. And boy, do I feel that. This isn't a bike that's especially easy to get off the line. I mean, it is, it's an e-bike, and especially if you're used to a manual bike, you'll be like, oh my god, what was he talking about? It's so easy. But for me, used to the Performance Line CX, I think it is, on my other bike, which was at the time the top of the line motor, which just bombs away from the line with no problems. This one, you got to put a little bit of effort in, but once you're moving, once you're cycling and sort of soaring along cycle paths, you really feel that cadence kick in and the power kick in, and it feels glorious, it feels like flying. There's also, you'll notice, a carbon belt drive here rather than chains. So nice. I love carbon belt drives. They require much less maintenance. They'll last for the lifetime of the bike, in effect, I think. We'll check that with Daniel. They'll certainly last for a very, very, very long time. Whereas with a chain, it's a bit more susceptible to wear and tear. It needs to be replaced every so often. And I noticed on my bike with a chain that performance kind of suffers a little bit, and you can't thrash the bike as much as you perhaps want to when the chain's feeling a little bit loose. This is optional, I think, the carrier that's been put on here. As far as I'm concerned, a carrier is not optional for an e-bike. You need to put a carrier on a bike, otherwise you're just taking yourself. And what the hell's the use in that? Most of us have got stuff to do, things to take. So being able to put some panniers on here, or a seat for a kid is great. It says the maximum load is 27 kilograms. This is really, really chunky. Great, love it. Other options on this bike include, so there's a couple of screw points here. You can put I presume like a drinks holder here or something, but you can also put an optional 400 watt range extender battery on here. It's a little under 500 quid, I think. So the main battery is 400 watts as well, but you can put another 400 watt battery onto here so that you're doubling your range. I'm not going to talk about what the range is. I don't really care about range on e-bikes, because for most of us, especially if we're living in a city, we're never using the full range of our bikes anyway. If I essay a guess, maybe 30-40 miles by default, doubling that if you put the range extender on, which is really nice. The other option that was quite cute was suspension. So this has, by default, has got no suspension on it. You can opt up, and I forget what the price was. It is this much. Thank you, future me. You can put a suspension fork on here, and I presume it's a thud buster. That's what you usually use in Riese Müller. You can put a little suspension post on the seat as well to give you a slightly smoother ride. I will say my normal bike doesn't have suspension. My other bike does have suspension, at least in the front fork, and my wife's bike has suspension on the front fork and on the seat, and I gotta say, it is awfully nice if you've got a little bit of softness to make that ride a little easier. What's it like to ride? It is joyful, it's glorious, it just feels so confident and secure. I mean, I said it right at the top of the show, I think. I meant to if I didn't. It's £3,800, thereabouts, for the base model, so it is not cheap. I get that. I'm kind of a bit bored of talking about how e-bikes are not cheap, especially the good ones. But the experience of riding this is just such a delight. It feels elegant, refined, sophisticated, comfortable, assured. That's my word for this bike. It feels assured when you're riding it. And it is a deep, deep joy. However, so this is the new format for this kind of part of the show. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump on the bike. There might be an edit point where it's a different day. Who knows? But at some point we're going to jump on the bike. We're going to nip into Dundee City Centre. We're going to talk to Daniel at Electric Bike Scotland and figure out from him what his 3 reasons are that you should buy this bike, and his 3 reasons why you should buy a different bike. I want to find out more about this motor, and I want to find out why this is the bike to buy, why it's the bike to skip. Let's go. And even though I very carefully laundered this jumper so that even though this was being filmed a week later, I could fool you into thinking it was being filmed on the same day, I'm afraid the weather did not cooperate, and the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that this is indeed not quite as sunny as it was in the first half. But you will recognise, I think, this route. I take it often. This is my road in from Broughty Ferry, where I live, into the centre of Dundee, where Electric Bike Scotland has their shop, cleverly on National Cycle Route 1, so that they can catch people on their bikes as they pass by and convert them, lure them in to talk about electric bikes and the joy they can bring. Hi Daniel, thanks for welcoming me back into Electric Bike Scotland.
That's right, Chris. Welcome back.
So the channel's never been inside the shop before, but obviously I have a few times.
Yeah.
This is one of the electric bike shops. You're a Bosch specialist, but you've got a huge range of bikes for lots and lots of different use cases, and you're based here in Dundee, where I live, on City Quays. And there's hundreds of bikes around us, but the one I'm going to talk about is the one that I've been testing for the last few days, the Riese Müller Culture Mixte. What's your top line? What do you like about it?
Me personally, I like the colour.
Yeah,
I like how it's lightweight, and I like how it's simple to use.
Yeah.
It's nice, it's easy, it's not overly complicated.
They're
probably my top things I like about it.
It really is. It's notable actually that with this bike in particular, I can just like jump on it, press one button, and then I'm away. Which is in contrast, which sounds like aren't all bikes like that, but actually I found that sometimes the bike will, for example, reset the assistance level, or it will take a little while to start up, or if I'm using my own bike, then it's quite a complex Bluetooth link into my phone system and stuff. But this, it's one button you press and you're off.
That to me is it almost bridges a gap between a normal bike and an e-bike. I think you've mentioned before, like getting all that data and things like that from bikes. That you can just hop on it. You don't have to have your phone. You can if you want to, but if you don't, excellent. It's there and ready to roll.
Yep, absolutely. So you've described this as an urban bike to me before. What makes up an urban bike?
For me, an urban bike it's got the full range of mudguards, lights, something you can use obviously day and night almost, in-hub gearing system.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I find is an urban bike.
Yeah.
The difference between your derailleur and your in-hub gearing system is when on a derailleur, you know yourself, when cycling, you've got to cycle to change gears, and that can be, if you come to a stop, it's always a pain, because if you get it wrong, or you've came to stop and it's in the wrong gear, you've got to change, and it's clunk, clunk, clunk. That, you go for it, you stop in the wrong gear, down, you're sorted. Yeah.
So let's explain that a little bit. So a derailleur gear is one of those things that looks a bit like a chicken leg or something sticking down at the back of the bike. You see the chain coming from around here, and it comes down out that way, and there's a system there, a little lever arm that changes the gear, basically. But you have to be in motion in order for that to work. And so the point you were making is that if you're coming to a stop at a road or traffic lights or something, you have to think ahead to change down gears as you're cycling, as you're approaching the stop. Whereas with the in-hub gearing system, which both my other bikes have got as well, you don't have to do that. In fact, you actually explicitly have to stop pedalling to change gears. And so you can come to a stop, change your gear, get the right one, and then off you go again from the start. That's actually, it's one of the things I talked about in the channel before. One of the things that I think marks e-bikes out, that's a really secret superpower that nobody ever talks about, is starting and stopping is so much easier and simpler than on a manual bike, and that comes with a kind of unanticipated benefit, I think, which is that it's really easy when you're on a manual bike or rather, when you're on a manual bike, you don't want to stop.
No.
Because stopping's a pain in the arse, and because you've got to like put a lot of energy into getting back up again, whereas an e-bike doesn't really matter. And this is a controversial thing to say, but I honestly think that e-bikes tend to make cyclists a bit more polite for that reason, because you're not having to you're not chasing that momentum. So you're much happier to slow or stop if there's a dog on the road or something. And you're not blasting through red lights, as people like to criticise cyclists for that reason. And the in-hub makes a big difference in that as well.
Definitely. Also, a few other things is this one comes with a belt drive. You can get a chain drive or a belt drive. This one has a belt drive on it, which again, great for urban use. All that grime, muck that you can see doesn't affect the belt drive. It's going to try and keep it as clean as best as possible.
So that was one of the things I said in my little introductory bit at the start of this video, was about the lifetime of the belt drive. And I've seen figures quoting in the tens of thousands of miles for life for belts. What do you see?
So I won't go that 10,000 miles. So I can give it in years. So I have a couple of belt drives that are coming up about 7, 8 years old now. And again, it's just make sure you get them serviced, keep them clean, and make sure the belt tension's right. You know, and they will last you. I've had a couple of belts that I've went, and that's due to maybe use or misuse, but you can't really say. But it's the sort of thing, you look after it, it will last you. You know, you implement that whole thing, that'll go. So
and the other thing I mentioned in the start of this video about the belt drive was I find that on the bike of mine that's got a chain drive, the chain, as you know, will slacken over time, it'll get a bit loose, and that does affect the responsiveness of the bike because it means you can't quite thrash it as much as you'd want it to get away from a standing stop in the same way. Whereas I find with a belt drive on my other bike, it's always it feels exactly the same every single time over years and years. It doesn't move.
I think with over that tension that the belt can keep that a lot longer. Where on a chain, like the pins will stretch and that will just go quicker, especially on an e-bike. With the power going through.
That's the thing. I mean, I've talked about that on the channel a lot. People will say, "Why don't you just convert a normal bike?" And that's a completely valid thing for people to do. 100%, it really is. But one of the reasons that e-bikes are expensive is that the components will be uprated because we expect people to use them more, and we expect them to be doing. You know, you'll have more momentum, more cadence because you'll be going a bit faster. So you're talking about better brakes, better everything basically across the board for an e-bike.
Definitely.
So the motor then was the main thing I wanted to talk to you about, the Performance Lines SX here. And you said to me as you handed the bike over to me, one of the notable things about it is that it doesn't really have a lot of power at standing, but once you're going, it really does. And I really felt that. So talk a little bit about that motor characteristic.
The new SX motor from Bosch was, I believe it was to help get into that lightweight market. A lot of people were moaning about the weight of the bike.
Which is valid, right? I mean, most e-bikes are pretty chunky. And we kind of don't care about that. So actually, my original bike, which is from Orbea, they explicitly put a thing on their website that says, we will not tell you how much this bike weighs. And the reason they do that is because they know that people who are doing spec sheet shopping will be like, oh, it weighs this. I'm not going to get that. Because people think about in those terms for normal manual bikes that lightweight is better. Because it usually is. Because you're having to move the bike as well as you, and also like putting it up in racks and stuff. And that's still true with e-bikes. But with an e-bike, you don't really care about the weight because you've got the power to help you.
So I believe this motor weighs 2 kilograms, or just under 2 kilograms. And where it differs from all the other motors that Bosch do is it only has 55 Newton meters of power, but where it brings that back up is the 600 watts of power it brings out itself. So it almost levels with the CX line when, like you said, you put the cadence in and bring it up. So as I mentioned earlier, it really bridges the gap between you were maybe once a cyclist, you can't do it as much now, just due to some reasons, and you want to get into an e-bike, but you're still holding on to the fact of, I want to be a cyclist. This motor is fantastic for mountain biking, road use, urban use, e-gravel, the type of areas where you maybe need to put the high cadence in to get places. This is the motor for it.
And I noticed as well, because the 10 ways bike that I've got that you've had a wee go on as well, it's got quite a weedy motor. Comparatively, it's a hub drive system. And I find actually in terms of like once the Riese Müller Culture Mixte and that 10-way Seago 800S, once they're moving, they feel identical. Same sense of like movement and cadence and flow. Where the 10 ways is much weaker than this is it has got no gears. And so getting up hills, you have to stand up sometimes to get up a hill. Whereas with this, it actually, again, when I'm used to my Performance Line CX motor in my little Orbea Katu E10LR, this still feels a bit like, oh, fuck. I've actually got to work a bit harder here. But you've got it does help, but you've still got the power to get you up hills a bit.
Definitely. You definitely got that power to help you get up there. And like I say, 55 Newton meters of torque's great. It's a good amount of power, especially in urban use. But like that, if you get the cadence in, that really brings that power up and gets you, like you said, gets you places and gets you up the hill sort of thing. So you've got to work at it, but the reward at the end is well worth it. definitely.
So what do you reckon about range? So I misspoke in the first half. I called it a 400 watt battery. Of course, it's a 400 watt hour battery.
Yeah.
And the same if you put the little click on here, that was 400 as well.
At 250.
Was it 250? Oh, I got that wrong.
It's a 250 range extender, and it's literally the size of a bag of sugar. The best way I could, and it just plugs right, as you said, plugs right into the charging socket, and you get 650 watts instead of the compact 400 watt hours.
Got you.
Which is great.
That's fine. So I misspoke when I said this one was a 400, so it's 250. So it's 400 inside. You can add on another 250. What do you reckon you're going to get with 400 watt hours in terms of range if you got the power at max?
So I'm going to go for me and my riding style,
which is you're a bit more adventurous than me. So I always have my power at max.
Yeah,
you tend to drop yours a little bit.
I'm normally a tour rider myself. I'm a bigger person. I personally would probably get about 45 miles.
Okay.
You probably get a wee bit more, but I'm just being a bit bigger, I would say.
Which chimes, because I think I said in the first half it was about 30 or 40 miles that I would get.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably about right.
Yeah.
But we hate talking about this, right? No. Because it depends on your riding style, how much effort you put in, what power you have set on the motor, and also on the terrain that you're in, and the conditions, temperature. Will have an effect. If it's colder, you'll get less range.
Yeah, it's like just now, it's colder just in the morning, so if you are cycling in, you might get that mile or two less, definitely.
So how do you deal with that question when you get it from customers? Because I get it all the time about range.
Our general rule of thumb with doing this for so long is we say about 10 miles for every 100 watt hours. So if it's a 400, we'd say about 40, 45, but it can vary. Yeah. Now with the new 750 watt hours that they do, I would still say around about 70 miles. It's like 70 miles. You know, that would give you your rough guide. If you get more, fantastic. But it's just to give you an idea of what it could be. I know Bosch and a lot of other manufacturers say, "Oh, you'll get so many hundreds of kilometers and stuff like that, making it sound big." But actually, they're adjusting test reality of it, not using it in the real world.
In Scotland,
in Scotland, and in the real world, you're going to get something completely different. Yeah. So, not almost undershooting it, but saying like, be realistic, you might get this.
And how do people react? Like, because I get the impression that people want a finite number. They want to know exactly how much it will do.
Yeah, so it's almost like, some people think, that's a lot. And other people will say, I thought I'd get more. And then I have to say to them, you might get more. But I just have to say, if I say to you, you're going to get 100 miles, and you only got 70, you're going to be like, this battery's defective.
I always find it really strange. So the car that I'd love to replace, we've got a little petrol Volkswagen Polo. It's getting quite old. I'd love to replace it with a Honda E. I love that wee car. Yeah. It's got about 100-mile range, it's quoted, I think.
Okay.
And it came in for so much criticism about that. The number of times I go more than 100 miles in one journey is basically, it's like maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
And even then, we're going down to see my parents, for example, at which point there's a stop off for a pee break and a bite of food, rapid charger, happy days. Yeah. It always strikes me as baffling, especially with bikes as well, that folks want these like 100-mile, 200-mile ranges.
Yeah.
It's a mindset I just don't understand, because for me, if I was doing my commute in and out to Dundee, that's like 4 miles each way.
Yeah. And I know this sounds like you're never going to be, it's not like a car where if you do run out of charge, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You can still pedal. Yeah. Like, I mean, it'll be a bit heavier, but you can still pedal. You know, that's the thing. But yeah, the range is a funny topic to speak about, and we'll try and get it as right as possible. But I think there'll be some skeptics. Yeah. There's always going to be some skeptics like, I can get so far on my bike and I've done this. And, like, that's fantastic.
Great,
but,
well done.
Yeah, but let's make set our expectations low. So if they go higher, excellent. But if they hit around about that mark, you're like, okay, I was expecting that.
Yeah. Under promise and over deliver.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So it's a great bike. As I say, I think on the Riese Müller website, it starts about 3,800.
Yeah.
You can add to that. It's a chunky amount of money to spend.
Yes.
How do you talk to folk about that?
So with Riese Müller, just as a brand in general, we see them as you're maybe getting rid of that second car you have. So like that, you said it's 3,800. That's roughly about a starting price for most of their e-bikes, and then we are working up from there. So it is a big investment, but that's really at the end of the day what it is. It's an investment. You're getting rid of that second car. You're conscious about making better journeys to go to the shops, go like yourself, maybe go to like the skip and stuff like that to drop off things. You're not seeing it as, oh, well, it's £3,800 and I'm only going to use it like 2-3 times, a year sort of thing. You're going to try and use this every day, and you're disappointed when you don't get to use it.
100%.
That's the thing we find. There is obviously different manufacturers, cheaper manufacturers that we do that like that. It could be used for just recreational use, but something like this and their other models and some of the other ones as well, you're wanting to use that every day. It's, like I said, replacing the car. You're taking the kids to school or nursery. You're going to the shops. You're trying to do as much things on your bike and leaving the car at home. So when you're using the car, you're like, oh, okay, I'm here. But when you're on the bike, you're like, oh, this is great. And I don't mind about the wind or almost the rain, but when it's sunshine, you're excellent, you're away.
But getting folk over that hump is tricky, right? It was the same for me. My first bike was £2,000. And that was like 7 years ago now, and it's still going great thanks to your servicing. But it's looking back now, it's always really tricky when you're making big decisions like this. It's like, do you sort of like slightly cheap out, but it's still a lot of money?
Yeah.
Or do you buy the right one? Do you buy the good one that you really want?
Yeah.
And looking back now, I absolutely could and should have treated myself a little bit more because I use it almost every day, if not every single day. But getting folk over that hump to go, no, you do want this. It's great. You'll love it. It's tricky.
Like you said, it's changing their mindset and framing sort of their questions in a way of how more are you going to use this? And one thing I always tell customers when they're buying a bike is you're only going to say you're going to do this and that on it. But I'll guarantee when you come back, either your 6-week check or your year service, you're going to tell me I'm actually out on it more. We have a customer coming in on Monday who, when she bought her bike, said to me, oh, I'm just going to use it to maybe go around like Maniki and that sort of area, and now she's away to go and do a big long journey. Right. I believe she said she's going to do John O'Groats to Land's End.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's
you literally can't get a longer journey.
No. So she's pushed herself so much to go and do this, from like that small couple of mile journeys, if even that, to one end of the country to the next.
And you'll see it as well when you bring the bikes in for service. You'll see the odometer, you'll see the readout. You'll go, aye.
Yeah. There is some customers that only do a couple of miles here and there, but 9 times out of 10, they get the bug and they just go, I'm going to run with that. Yeah. This is me now. I'm on it, and they're on the phone. I've brought it in for a service, and they're like, "Oh, can we get it back now?" It's been an hour, and they're like, I'm ready to go back on it. They want to be out on it, especially when the weather's hopefully going to get better soon. Yeah. That's where it's going to be.
100%. All right, so let's wrap up then on the Riese Müller Culture Mixte. As you know, I'm going to ask you for your 3 reasons why somebody should buy this bike and your 3 reasons why somebody should skip it for a different model. So run me through those first 3.
So for me, for buying this bike, again, as I mentioned, the lightweight. And that's one thing. If you're needing something you can lift up into certain places and you're able to, definitely go for that. Like I said, the lightweight is 21.8 kilograms. Fantastic. Other things I would say, the belt drive and in-hub gearing system, again, simple, easy to use, and just what really daft is just the look of the bike. I know that's such an eye catcher, and maybe put a wee basket on the front, double pannier bags, like you said, you can go shopping, you can go places. I think these are the things, and it's just beautifully designed. Beautifully designed.
I'm such a whore for Riese Müller. Like, their industrial design language is so beautiful. Yeah. It feels so. A bunch of e-bikes, as you'll know, they try to look not like e-bikes, and that's okay. That's fine. Some people will like that. And a bunch of e-bikes look really e-bikey, really techy and like aggressive, and that's also fine. Yeah. But Riese Müller managed to this lovely balance between it, where it just feels inevitable. The design feels like that's what it should look like. Oh,
definitely.
And as you say, eye-catching, beautiful, gorgeous, and chunky. Yeah. Lovely wee thing. Yeah. No. Love it. All right. Your 3 reasons then why somebody should skip it for something else.
Built-in battery. That's if you don't have the facilities to store the bike someplace like a garage or a shed, and you want to bring the battery in, that can be a bit of a nightmare.
And even if you do have a garage, it could get cold.
Yeah,
and you don't want to be charging your bike in sub-zero.
No, you don't want to be doing that. And just even then, if you do, there might not be a power outlet in there, and it just makes it a little bit more hassle for yourself. on that one. The rigid ride, you mentioned your thing. It's quite. If you're used to it, excellent. But I think as well that if you're not used to it, go for the upgrade. Go for the.
It wasn't that much either.
No,
it was 95 quid or something to stick the suspension fork and seat post in there as well.
In it as well. But probably if you're only just doing urban stuff, excellent. But you do get a certain people who are maybe a little bit adventurous and want to go a little bit more. At the end of the day, it is just an urban bike. But if you want to go for something a bit more, like a tourer, go for a tourer. Don't settle for this and then try to do it. That's probably that sort of way. But overall, I could give you two good ones, like the two ones. But the third one I was struggling a little bit on the why you shouldn't, because why not? It's lovely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bike.
Yeah,
amazing. Well, look, Daniel, thanks so much for loaning it to me for a few days. The next one you're going to give me is a model from Gazelle. So
the Ultimate C5
which is over there. You can't see it on film. It's over there. So I'm not going to talk about that in this video. You'll see it soon coming up. But if you like this bike, go check it out. Obviously, I've said this on the channel before. If you're interested in e-bikes, especially if you're not especially knowledgeable about them, go and make friends with your local bike shop. They really do want to help. It's been my experience in the 3 or 4 bike shops I've worked with. They are lovely people. They're not trying to fleece you. They want you to make the best choices for you. So if you're curious whether or not you're buying this bike or something else, go and make friends with the folks at your local bike shop. Get yourself knowledgeable, get yourself an e-bike, and have an amazing ride. We will see you next time on e-bike Nugs. Thanks for watching.